5. Pop out. Looks good. Pop out. Sweet ass. Okay. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. This is episode 10. Today, it's going to be all Diablo 4. The last quarterly update of the year came out. Hold on. Let me just actually start that again. I've forgotten to start the captions. Anyway, 3, 2. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. It's episode 10, and this week we'll be going all the way Diablo 4. We have our last update of the year, the December 2020 update. I was kind of skeptical of when it would actually come out. I wasn't sure whether it would be early December or late, but I guess the middle works. But anyway, let's dive into it because there's a lot of stuff to go through here. So I'm going to take you guys to the website. Yeah, so there's an introduction here. So I'll read everything and then kind of go through it a little bit. So, hello and welcome once again to the Diablo 4 quarterly update, our last for 2020. Progress continues at a steady clip, and we're excited about several big updates and revisions that the team's worked on for a long time, and we're trying to complete before the holidays. Nice. Today's topic centers on one major revision, which also happens to be the most requested topic, itemization. Yeah. Items of the life of Diablo. They are the element of the game that captures your imagination and keeps you playing and wondering what if. Yeah. After you put the game down, whether it's anticipating the next piece of perfectly rolled godly gear or kicking around in item combinations in your head like a mad scientist, items are undoubtedly a major part of Diablo. So this goes on to basically say that they paid attention to a lot of our player feedback. There are more iterations between what we showed you at BlizzCon 19 and our follow-up blogs and the final game release. We also know from past Diablo entries that we will need to have the time and resources to make these iterations. Thankfully, we have that baked into our current schedule. Okay. So lead game designer Joe Shelley is going to walk us through all the major updates. We can keep tabs of what's going on social media as always, blah, blah, blah. Next update will take place during BlizzCon line, and there was some good stuff in here. Next update will take place during BlizzCon line, which is in February. Rather than in blog form, we've read speculation about what it could be and want to ensure you that it is something chunky indeed. Without spoiling the surprise, let's just say it involves a new version of the campfire scene we showed you at last BlizzCon. Basically a new class. I mean, there's no real clear way of saying it without actually saying it, so start thinking. Come up with some things. Tell me what you think. I mean, a lot of people thought about what's coming next, and there's been a lot of stuff thrown around already, but I mean, we can always kick that off again. Especially now that it's all but confirmed that we're getting something else. So, today we're going to look at some changes to items in Diablo 4 and update you on a few things that we've shared in our previous development blogs. In deciding what changes to make, we focused on 3 core ideals. First, we want to strengthen class identity by providing intuitive fantasy hooks. Items and skills that lean into the fantasy of your class are best. Secondly, we want to support deeper customization through our itemization. Items should support and enhance your class, not define it. Finally, we're landing on overall depth somewhere between Diablo 2 and 3. We aim to provide years of things to discover and countless ways to build a class. So, I really want to see what this turns out to be. I mean, there isn't a whole lot of, like, how should I put this? In Diablo 2, there are a lot of crafting recipes. You just have to go and find them, but it's not like there's single stat rolls. And the nitpicking you can do at, like, the Path of Exile level, where you just be like, oh, I need life on this piece of gear, and then it's basically God tier. In D2, you had to put in a specific set of items to make, like, blood gloves, for example, or a caster amulet, something like that. But everything was kind of predefined. It was just on ranges, and you had to just kind of RNG what you got. So that's one thing. I'm glad they're not going all Diablo 3 because this state is horrible. Closer to D2 is honestly fine. Diablo 4, can I download? I'm just doing a podcast episode. The topic is just relevant. But this is not the... I'm not playing the game. I just was not really planning on streaming in the talk shows and podcasts section. I felt this was more fitting. But welcome. Yeah, so going on, and I hope you're doing well, by the way. Going to the skill tree, since releasing the last quarterly blog post on the skill tree, we've been reviewing all of your feedback. A lot of hands-on time with our skill trees and frequent internal playtests, including extended progression playtests. Based on this, we're confident that it's a solid direction. I think so too. We're increasing the clustering of related skill nodes so players don't have to go across the tree to find skill upgrades for their builds. Good plan. The ability to respecialize or respec your skills is a tricky one to balance. Like many of you, we want choices to matter and characters to feel different from each other, not just one click away from being identical to all the others. We also want to encourage players to experiment with different skills when they start playing and discover builds that are right for them. You're able to respec your skills and passives. The number of times you can do this will be unlimited, but it won't be free. This is the real kicker. It'll come at a cost. We'll see what that cost is. I honestly hope it's a bit high. It will be easy to do when you first start a character. As your character grows, the effort and cost required to respec will grow too. Okay. In the endgame, changing your build requires significant investment and appropriately match the time and effort you put into defining your character. I'd almost rather have like a token of absolution style thing where it's deep into the endgame. I mean, D2 also has the Den of Evil quest that you can get to get a respec in Act 1. Per difficulty, but this game doesn't work that way. So I would like to see what exactly that looks like in the final stage. Yeah, the last blog goes into much more skill tree stuff, but I like the representation of it better. Primary stats. In our last blog, we agreed with your feedback that too much of a character's power came from the items they wore. Yeah. And we liked the and we liked the imagery conjured by the phrases angelic and demonic power, but they didn't reinforce the fantasy of what being a barbarian, a sorcerer, or a druid is all about. Yeah, I agree. It put the power in the gear, but in a much more specific way. But that's not what Diablo is really about. So we went back to our roots and looked at the classic RPG elements of early Diablo games. Yeah. What are you really doing when you wade through a horde of monsters and emerge a higher level on the other side? You're training, you're practicing a skill, you're getting better at what you do, becoming stronger and smarter. After gaining a level, our barbarian has received 5 stat points and 2 skill points. Okay. Neat. So we have the basic strength, int, dex, and the last one is willpower. All right. Yeah, so it says that here. Of course, most barbarian builds are going to benefit from a healthy measure of strength, but as you build out your character and decide on skills and synergies, you'll want to mix in the other attributes. Also, notice no vitality. I didn't catch that at first, but no vitality, and this is the difference, I think. Is that the difference shot? Oh, no, it's not. Okay, as a barbarian, each point of strength will increase your damage of your skills, while willpower improves your regeneration. I hope, because that sounds like a main stat game. Well, I hope it doesn't just come to, buff strength all the way and win. Willpower improves fury generation. Dex grants crit chance. Meanwhile, as a sorceress, intelligence increases skill damage. Willpower is crit chance. Dexterity hastens mana recovery. Each stat also confers a secondary defensive bonus. So this is, you gotta be careful. Gotta be very careful. You can supplement your character's stat build with items to give you a little more willpower here, a little more strength there, but the vast majority of your stats will come from how you choose to spend your points. Fair enough. And here's where it gets really interesting. I hope so. Many of the nodes in each class skill tree have an additional effects if you meet specific primary stat thresholds. Really? All right. So there's stat requirements on them. You'll get the baseline effect of these nodes when you spend the skill points to unlock them, but get enough of the corresponding primary stat and the bonus effect will be activated. So let's just... Oh, I see. Gotcha. So you can just stat into those things. You'll want to think carefully about how you allocate your stat points to activate these skills. Now let's talk items. Weapon types. As we hinted in our last blog, we're making substantial changes to core itemization. We'll start by looking at many different weapons available to classes in Diablo 4. Our weapon types look visually distinct and have meaningful effects on gameplay through features like the Barbarian's Arsenal. We've also done a lot of work in the game engine to make weapons feel more real and physical. Like the Barbarian carving a trough through the ground with their mace during upheaval. Yeah. But something was still missing. Wands should be faster than quarterstaves, and swords and maces should do different things. To see what that feels like in action, we've added weapon speeds and inherent characteristics to all weapons in our latest internal test environment. Good move. The 2 different weapon choices for sorceress at level 20. So staff and a wand, the hit effect. Okay, very fast attack, slow. So one has crit, one has resource regen. Overpower? Not clear on what that means. Damage to immobilized enemies with an immobilized chance. In general, one-handed weapons excel at letting you attack and respond and letting you attack and reposition quickly, while slower, yeah. You can feel the differences between them. Go for a staff to cast more damaging crossbows, or a wand to channel them more quickly. What else have we got here? Physical characteristics of a weapon are shown above the separator in the tooltips. Here we see examples of a shield, wand, and axe. Okay. The art is good as always. It looks like they put more effort into the single icons. Because in like Diablo 3, there's a lot of, how should I put this, mixed quality textures. Some of them look really shit when you get up close. But the art is overall good, and you know, Blizzard is great at that. So you might notice about something else about this item's high resolution. I did. So good on upgrading everything, especially with high res and things like DLSS and whatever. If this game will support it, good to have high res renders. Item qualities. We've also made some exciting changes to the game's item qualities. Philosophically, we'd like the clarity of analysis afforded by clearly understood item tiers. In other words, we think players of all skill levels benefit from not having to scrutinize every single item that drops to see if it might be an upgrade for them. Blue magic items are good, but yellow rares are better. There's a great feeling of progression when you graduate into items with greater complexity, more powerful effects, and cooler looks as you level up. Game-changing powers found on legendary items in Diablo 3 are exciting. They're not exciting. No. If sets didn't lean on them so much, they would be better. But, you know, let's be honest, it's really bad. So anyway, back to the sentence. Diablo 3 are exciting and offer many possible effects that just aren't possible with regular affixes. Whatever. That said, we don't want to end up in a place where the right decision is to ignore every item that doesn't have a glowing orange sky beam. So there should be some gray area between these two, basically. And when you're starting off, there should be some gray area here. But there is like a cutoff where you're like, oh, I found a yellow item, you know, just toss your blue and replace. Or I found a legendary, right? There's always going to be some kind of thing to change about it. Increasing the potential power on individual affixes on magic items. We're increasing the maximum number of affixes on rare and better items in the endgame. Legendary affixes will now roll randomly, yes really, on legendary items, and uniques will replace mythics. Okay. Item sockets too. That's neat. 1 socket, 2 socket, and nothing. Legendary affixes. So this is what they were saying about random affixes, because these two have the same thing. So it could be on a chest or boots. Yeah, so they talk about that here. Some of them are class specific. Uniques. Making a comeback in a big way in Diablo 4, embracing the fantasy of these build-around items with completely fixed affixes, heavily thematic and usually class-specific powers and distinctive looks. This is where you really have to be careful. This is that gray area, that place where you don't want your build to be completely unique item oriented. The affixes are fairly basic. Dodge, damage, crit, attack speed. I'm not sure I like the elite damage. I think they could use sockets in a better way too. It all depends on what goes in them, etc. Cannot salvage. That's interesting. It's actually interesting. Does this have that too? No. So I guess they're scrapping the whole materials thing. We still like the idea of mythic items, but we don't want to create an item quality that invalidates all the other items. That you don't want to, but if you're not careful, you will. And that's the biggest problem. So they're out for now. If there is going to be a mythic tier, then it should just be like 1 or 2 items for your class that would just be like bonkers to have, but it's not necessary. Sort of like a headhunter, for example. Just something that you can chase that doesn't define your build, but if you had it, it's just fun to use. But there shouldn't be builds that are strictly stuck in this sort of bracket here. It should start about there with like good rares. So I guess we'll see. I mean, some of these stats can be fleshed out as well. So anyway, I'm guessing that's it. Excited to read through community feedback on the updates in this blog. As always, please remember that none of this is final, obviously. Okay. I think like the rest of this stuff, it's a good direction. They didn't talk about crafting literally at all. That could be something that breaks items wide open. But they said absolutely squat about it. They just covered the sort of like high level, here's our item stats, here's qualities, and hey, we're doing this with them. But they still kind of like they still kind of need a lot of playtesting, and it would be good to see where a final build in this version of it ends up. And by that I mean, like in this build, if they're internally playtesting it, are they wearing all legendaries? Are they wearing all uniques? I mean, can you change anything on them is like question number 1. Dropping some frames too. Crap. Okay. Well, I hope the recording comes out okay. Anyway, yeah, can you change them? If you have crafting materials, where do they come from? We saw that there's a can't be salvaged on uniques. But what about legendaries and everything? What are the crafting options? Like, is there going to be another blacksmith? Is another one. And if we're not changing single stats, are we going back to like Diablo 2's cube crafting, the sort of RNG? And I guess that'll also affect the kind of currency items that we have in a pretty major way. Also, I'm going to apologize for the frame drops. I will look at the recording and see what I can do. I hope it's not too choppy. But I think I've gotten everything that I wanted out there. Yeah, I guess we'll have to see at BlizzCon. I'm sure they wanted to save a lot of those other questions around items for then. At least I'm hoping. Yeah. I think that's about it. There's not a whole lot else to discuss. I mean, they did make a lot of very meaningful changes. I still like where it's going. But you know, I think with every update so far this year, I can't say for sure. And those crafting questions and also stuff around the end game really have to be filled in for me to really make a choice. They also didn't really cover runes here, which would make a huge difference to items. But again, that's all stuff we can ask later. So anyway, I think I'm going to cap off there. I'm going to try and download these files and see what I can do with them. Hopefully the frame drops weren't too bad, but I'll try to have them up soon. Anyway, thank you for stopping by. If you did, I might be back a bit later with the stream, but yeah, until then, I am going to list this video and I'll include a link to this particular blog post in the description. Feel free to follow on YouTube or Twitch. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. I'm not too sure when the next podcast will be. I'll see what's happening around BlizzCon online in February and see what I can do with that. But yeah, until then, see you in the next one.